Welcome, everyone. I'm Laura DeFranco, the CEO of Brave Healer Productions, where we have a mission to change the world one brave word at a time around here. And here today to help me with that mission are some of the most amazing author experts of a new book that we have coming out. It's called The Ancestors Within: Celebrate and Honor Your Sacred Origins. And you guys, this is volume 4 in Amy Gillespie Dougherty's series of books on ancestral healing. Amy, we would not be here without you. Book 4, girl. Congratulations. Thank you so much for your huge mission around this topic. And you brought together a stellar author cast, not only for this particular book 4, but all of the books. I know you have an incredible summit coming up too. I'm honored to be in your world. Thank you so much for trusting me with your book babies. So let me introduce you all to the authors who are in this book. I have Elizabeth Kipp with me, and Elizabeth has been in a few books in this series. I think all of them, right, Elizabeth? Oh my goodness. Okay. Thank you for being back for book 4. She is a stress management and chronic pain specialist, trauma-trained and yoga-informed addiction recovery coach, ancestral clearing practitioner, yoga and meditation teacher, and international best-selling author of The Way Through Chronic Pain: Tools to Reclaim Your Healing Power. I also have Jody Cursio with me. Jody, did I pronounce your last name correctly today?
You did.
Okay, I just want to make sure right away, okay? She is a professional genealogist and is the founder of the Modern Ancestrix, where she guides people in making deeper connections to their ancestors and cultural heritage. Krista Lindquist is with me. She's an author, intuitive life coach, healer, and founder of J. Ray Wellness, LLC. She's on a mission to help others make peace with their past and manifest miracles into the present. I also have Melissa McGlone with me. She created the Goddess Mother Healing classes and nutritional detox products out of her 20 years experience as a colon hydrotherapist, born out of her own healing journey overcoming chronic endometriosis and infertility. Oh my goodness. I cannot wait to get into this discussion today. Elizabeth, you're going to start the party off. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm so delighted and honored to be in this book and to be with all of you. My chapter is chapter 22, The Ancestral Gift of Prayer, the Miraculous Healing Power of Sopurk, which is a Shabad or prayer that's in the Siri Guru Granth Sahib, which is the sacred text of the Sikh spiritual practice. And the story around that is I separated from my husband, or my husband and I separated. And after 40 years of marriage, and it was amicable until it wasn't. All of a sudden, it became contentious, and I was just like, I mean, we'd never had a contentious problem in the relationship at all, and all of a sudden, here it was, and I was like, I'm not having this in this relationship. It's not allowed in this space. So I went home. And I started doing, I'm an ancestral clearing practitioner, so I started doing ancestral clearing around our relationship. But I also I knew about Sopurk, this prayer, which I think it was penned in 1500, right? So it goes back a ways. Women recite Sopurk 11 times a day for 40 days, the lore is, and it raises the man that they're projecting about to sainthood. And I'm like, that's a great story. Let's clear the negativity, right? Let's just do that. So I started doing ancestral clearing and working with Sopurk. And it was the most humbling experience that I've had, because it showed me how many resentments I had against men in my life that I was just unconscious of. I just hadn't even realized it. And it also took me into the patriarchy and the issue with the feminine and the masculine, and this big fight that we have on the planet currently. And I went all the way back into the origin of that through the ancestral clearing process and so perk at this real interesting combination. So I wrote about it, and what was really cool was not only did I clear my stuff, but the relationship went back to amicable. So I mean, like, it's pure magic. And I thought, wow, well, that would, because this is a prayer prayer's been used. This is a gift that we have from our ancestors, and why not write about it? So that's what I did.
I'm very happy to hear that there was a happy ending to that story, that energy helped shift your relationship back into, something amicable. But what I thought was so beautiful when I read this, and it was something I had never heard of, and I was very interested in this because the awareness that you had to even care enough to do something about what had happened there. I mean, you're a badass, Elizabeth. Like, you take everything to the level of, you know what, I'm going to take responsibility for this. What else can I do to bring it back to a place that I really want it to be in? I just think that's awesome. I wonder if there was anything else you wanted to say about that process and how it was for you.
Oh, I forgot another little piece, and thank you, Laura. The tool. Um, at the end of this process, I had this kind of divine download, and that's my tool, is the prayer, the ancestral clearing for the Magdalene wounds. I used Mary Magdalene as the avatar because she's not the only one, but she's a good avatar for 3 wounds that women carry, and men carry them through their mothers. Right? Women standing in their power, women in their sexuality, and women in their intuition. And so that was really a gift that came from this work that I did with So Perk, and so I passed it on to everyone else. Thanks.
Nice. All right, you guys, stay tuned for more from Elizabeth. Elizabeth, thank you so much for being in this project and all of the projects. You are a wonderful writer, but you have so many gifts that you're sharing in addition to the writing. All of you, I'll just say a quick thank you to all of you here today and all of our co-authors. You said yes to a challenge of writing the vulnerable stories and allowing people into your world like that, but also getting your master teachings into writing in a way that our readers can have a very practical, real experience and result. And that takes something. So thank you for doing that so brilliantly. Jody, you're next up today. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
My chapter is chapter 18, Everyday Rituals, Deepening Connections to Ancestral Legacies and Self-Awareness and Empowerment. And as a genealogist, we deal mostly in the tangible. We deal with, facts and evidence and DNA on the scientific side. And for me, I felt like there was a disconnect. There wasn't a lot of heart, right? It's a lot of pragmatic tools and resources that you use to find your ancestral heritage, right? Your lineage. And for a lot of people, like our lead author, Amy, they don't know anything about their ancestry lineage because they were adopted. And so there's lots of ways to go about this, but in my world, it's very fact-based. And I wanted to find tools to sort of help make a connection between what I saw as 2 very disparate practices. And I started doing genealogy around the year 2000 and decided to do it more professionally as of 2019. And I've always been interested in the spiritual path. I've been a seeker, a lifelong learner. And along the way, I've picked up a number of things. And I thought, well, what if I applied them to my genealogy? What if I applied them to my new profession? And that's sort of how I came up with, I put 10 in the book. But the one I focus on is writing a love letter to my ancestor. And I was working on lineage on my mother's side of the family. and hit a bit of a brick wall. There were some things I couldn't quite find out. And even using my best tools and my genealogy know-how, I just felt stuck. So I thought, well, let's take some of my spiritual practice and what would I do if I was having an issue with somebody here on earth in present day? And I thought, well, we're going to send love. We're going to touch into the heart. We're going to send love. We're going to send appreciation. And so I did that in a formal way, and I hand wrote and later typed up a love letter to this ancestor that I was having an issue with really finding out more. And within about a month, we're going to say within a moon cycle, all of a sudden I got contacted by a distant cousin who I did not know. And she started sending me some information, which led me down another path, and my brick wall started crumbling down. And I thought, maybe there's something to this. So that is the tool I primarily talk about in my chapter, but there are others. And one of the things I do with clients is I open this pathway to them. It's not for everyone. Some people are very, how should we say, stuck in the what they can see. And so, but I do make it available to them. And I feel like by creating a safe container for them and what we're about to explore and discover, it makes them involved in part of the process, where often genealogists work with a client, get the information, go, and then report back to them. And I try and do it a little bit differently. And so by sharing these practices with them, I'm hoping it opens up some new pathways for them.
The love letter is such a beautiful practice that I use for other different kinds of reasons and haven't used it for ancestors yet. So thanks for the nudge.
Certainly.
I think that's awesome. I think I'm going to ask you all a question later that has a little bit to do with this. So stay tuned for that. Jody, thank you for being in this project.
Absolutely.
So Krista, you're up next. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Right. Hello, everyone. I wrote chapter 13, The Birth and Death That Healed Me, and sharing healing connections with ancestors of the future. So my story is all about exactly that, how I realized that the birth of my daughter and the death of a significant family member actually healed me from my pain of, going through a series of bizarre traumas as a teen. I originally thought that becoming a young mom and bringing this beautiful baby into the world, wondering what's going to happen to her next. And little did I know that she was going to propel me onto my own healing journey and be one of my primary teachers along the way and help me recognize and help really utilize my tools and my connections with my past loved ones and ancestors to continue helping guide me on my path and guiding me to my own healing, which will then in return help heal my ancestors. So my chapter is all about this unique story and this bond that I have with my daughter, with my past loved ones. And the tool that we share is all about how to tap into that, how to communicate with our ancestors that are no longer here, and essentially helping clear our own channel so that we can tune in and communicate with them and make that connection with their ancestors. And then the tool also teaches us, okay, it's one thing to heal ourselves and to make that connection with their past ancestors, but what if we could break that chain now by passing this healing on to future, ancestors of our future, so that we don't have to keep passing this pain on and figuring out, what do I need to do to heal? Let's heal the past and heal the future by connecting all of us together. So our tool is all about how my daughter Jalen and I have learned how to clear our channels, connect with our ancestors, and how we share that practice together and supporting her on her spiritual journey too.
I think it's so amazing, and I did it early on, to recognize your children as your teachers. And my daughter too, so I resonate with your story and everything that you wrote about quite a bit. And I knew from a very early age that she was one of my biggest teachers. And then as she's grown up and moved through particular things, it was like, whoa, yeah, there it is. That can be, well, we're taught the opposite, that we rule the children, that we parents are the teachers of the children, right? So what else do you want to say about that, about looking at your kids as your teacher?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I was raised that same way. I'm sure most of us were, of like, the parents know best. They're in charge here. They need to teach us. And it was interesting, the struggles that I had with my own relationship with my mother in particular, that has completely transformed since my daughter was born. Because once, I didn't believe it until my daughter proved it to me, that, wow, you are here to teach me so much. And it actually helped me accept and kind of step into that role with my own parents, and just know that, yes, I'm here to teach them too. And it can go both ways. We're all here to teach each other. And so it's certainly helped me, gosh, heal my relationship with, my family that's still here. And gosh, she's such an old soul. I joke about it all the time. Oh my goodness. I mean, maybe perhaps she was my parent in a past life before too, because it is just amazing how wise, and how grounded, how connected, how intuitive she naturally is. And I think it's really helped me strengthen my skills, and gifts that I came to this earth to do. And at the same time, be able to support her at a much younger age down her own spiritual path than I could have ever imagined. So recognizing that healing happening, in this, letting her be free to live her truth, and to follow that path at such a younger age, I can already see, that healing being passed on now. And there's nothing greater I could ever ask for.
Mm, these chapters that you all are writing are really, they're waking the world up to what's possible. We have been taught and conditioned to believe so many different things. And I know you are all have been on a journey of relearning and waking yourselves up to, like, oh, maybe that thing that I was taught isn't the thing, right? And I think when we ask ourselves these questions, everything can change from there. I get so excited about these topics. All right, Melissa, your turn. Tell us about your amazing chapter.
Thank you so much, Laura. I actually am kind of giggling to myself because it's so right on time that Krista and I are on the same call. We both incorporated our daughters into our chapter very independently of each other. And Krista, I have to say to you, I was very inspired because as we were going through the different rounds of editing and things like that, I was like, oh my gosh, she has this amazing connection with her daughter, who's also her teacher. And I find that my daughter is my teacher as well as my son. The jumping off point for my healing practice years ago of colon hydrotherapy was that I did become sick and was able to heal, self-heal, God heal from what the doctor said was the worst case of endometriosis they'd ever seen. And they were just not hopeful at all that I'd ever have children. Luckily, I was guided by a family member to do a detox. I did a 90-day detox, was able to heal, and had 2 kids that way. And that really inspired me into my practice of colon hydrotherapy. So I have been practicing that for 20 years. And it was back in 2007 through my healing practice that I was blessed, exposed to the healing medicinal properties of different ancient medicinal plants. So I wrote the chapter right after Krista, chapter 14, redefining healing through ancient medicinal plants and ceremonies, connecting with your ancestors. And I felt profoundly moved to share my healing story, not only from endometriosis, but the healing work that I've done since then around the trauma of losing my mother at a young age. I lost my mom at 8 years old, and I think that has defined my entire life, of course, but it also defined my wellness. And to journey back then into detoxing from not only a physical detox, but an emotional and spiritual detox, that became kind of in the forefront. So when I was blessed with learning about ayahuasca, the grandmother medicine from different indigenous cultures, it was probably the most profound work I've done since in terms of my spiritual journey. And the first ceremony, sacred ceremony that I did, I actually purged the death of my mother. And I really felt like on an energetic level that I was purging cancer, that it was a black toxic purge. And it was so profound for me that when my daughter a number of years ago was not doing well, I could tell that she was spiraling downward with depression and anxiety and had gotten into some serious drug use. I actually brought her into some sacred ceremonies, which she writes about in the blog post that I include in my chapter, how that literally cured her depression and anxiety. So I think some might say, oh my gosh, why, you would bring your children into this type of medicine. And I say, absolutely yes, because it is medicine. And I believe that through my healing journey of working on the trauma of losing my mom, but also really my mom and dad, that I want to be a voice for people to say, not only do you have to address physical ailments, you have to address the root cause, which is usually an emotional basis. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for having me, Laura, because I'll echo with everybody that we are so grateful for you, and we're grateful for you giving us this powerful voice.
Oh, thank you. And you all are you're sharing things that are so vulnerable. The power is in that willingness and awareness to share the things that are outside of the box, that you've had looks from other people about, that you've, been called names about, that you all, my brave healers, I mean, I adore playing in the sandbox with you every day, because you're changing the way people understand what's possible for their own lives, their healing, their joy. It's big potatoes stuff for me. So really can't say thank you enough for you all signing up for that journey. It's not for it's for warriors, this journey of publishing words, Okay.
For acknowledging that, Laura, just real quick, because I do feel vulnerable. It does make me feel vulnerable, and that's exactly why I knew I had to write about it.
Yes. Thank you, Melissa. All right, I've got a couple questions I really have been dying to ask all of you. I want to hear all of the different ways you'll answer this. Jody, I'm going to start with you for this one, okay? For many of us, when we think about where we came from in terms of our ancestors, we really don't have a very positive feeling. But this book is about celebrating and honoring those sacred origins. When we flip that switch and we look at where we came from in terms of celebration, we changed the game a little bit there. Would you share how you think about this?
Certainly. In my family, we sort of had two camps. My father's side of the family was Italian American, and my mother's side was Scottish English, yada yada yada, right? Kind of that big blend came out, colonial ancestry came over in the mid 1600s. And both have some negativity, especially in today's landscape. So on my mother's side, the colonialism, and certain ancestors were slaveholders. I've been able to document that, and so that's something super proud of. But also recognizing the time and the place and how that evolved, and for them they had a different perspective, and it doesn't make it right or wrong, but understanding that we don't hold that responsibility. And I think that's where the ancestral healing comes in. We acknowledge it, we accept that it occurred, and with the right tools, we can release any shame, fear, or other emotions that are tied up with that. On the other side of the family, on my father's side, he grew up in an era in Brooklyn, New York, where he was called Dago, Guinea Wop, a lot of not so nice names. And today you'll still hear people make those references, or other ethnic slurs that people don't think hold hurtful connotations. And through this ancestral healing and looking at these origins and celebrating all the things that they did to get here. You know, if one thing had been different, we wouldn't be here, right? We wouldn't exist. And a lot of them overcame feast or famine and poverty and horrible circumstances, especially women in Italy. They were often treated very brutally. But looking at the positives, celebrating the crafts that they had. And in some places, the ancestral medicines they practiced because there weren't doctors, and framing it in a way that maybe doesn't use today's standards, but framing it in a way that we can appreciate. There is always something to celebrate.
Yes, thank you for that. And I love this book for that reason, that we're shifting the focus to that higher vibe energy. Krista, what do you want to add to this? You know, sometimes we think of that past and those ancestors, and there's sometimes not a whole lot of celebratory energy there. How do you think about this topic?
Yeah, well, that's so interesting, how Jody let us off in knowing like some pretty specific details about her ancestors. And that's amazing, being able to pinpoint, slavery and this colonialism and these things that, were more obvious of things that could be passed on. And in my case, I have a very Scandinavian background, Swedish, Norwegian, on my mom's side, primarily Polish, German. And I don't know enough of ancestors to know of any specific, events and issues that could have caused, trauma and this pain passing down. But what I can notice is certainly feeling it. And in my path, I've learned so much of, the struggles that I was facing, and a lot of these internal struggles, lack of confidence, communicating, being able to express myself and communicate my feelings, where my family has always been very sweep it under the rug and we don't talk about personal things, putting everybody else's needs first and having a hard time putting ourselves first. I started noticing through myself and what I was feeling and struggling with internally, and starting to recognize that in my other family members that I know. And it led me to be more curious about how my parents were brought up, what their relationships were like with their parents, and so on. And slowly starting to piece together more personal stories, histories of alcoholism and abuse. And again, this common theme of just not communicating. And I started realizing, wow, there's our healing connection right there, and starting to journal. And it's mentioned in my chapter too, that was exactly what it is that's been passed down. And even though I might not know all of the details of all of the stories, I sure could feel what needed to be healed. And that's what I work on now too. And making a point that with my daughter, that we communicate openly, that we allow all our spaces, to be a free space to share how you're feeling and what's going on, so that we can break the silence. I think really that silence was one of the most traumatic things that have been passed down through my ancestors. And so here I am again. Thank you, Laura, for giving us this opportunity to share these stories, to be vulnerable, to communicate and share our stories and our experiences, so we can inspire other people to start doing this work for themselves too. Because even if you don't know all the details, all the pieces, I'm sure that what you're personally struggling with is tied to and very similar to what's been passed down, your lineage for many, many generations.
Yeah, these are life-changing awarenesses that you're all sharing. And I totally resonate with you, with what you said about that speaking up thing. That was all through that, passed down, it was taught, whatever that was, that has been a big part of my journey. Okay, Melissa, what do you want to add to this discussion, this crazy, juicy discussion we're having here?
I think it's so interesting, especially when we're talking about ancestry and DNA. And I speak of this in my chapter because I definitely, like many people, there's definitely lots of dysfunction in my background. enough so that my dad really wasn't part of my life. I mean, he left our family, literally gave up custody, gave my sister and brother and I over to the state of Virginia, Commonwealth of Virginia, when I was just 3 years old. However, his love of our Celtic ancestry definitely, even at a young age, came through. And even before I knew that I was 80% Celtic, I joke and say I'm Celtic American, like 60% Irish, 20% Scottish, that it somehow even affected naming my daughter. I named my daughter Maren Elizabeth McGlone Winkle. It doesn't get much more Celtic than that. So his pride of our Irish and Scottish heritage came through my blood. So I just think it's interesting that even if someone isn't really part of your life, that you are imprinted with that in your DNA. So,
and that energy feels celebratory.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's
100%. Even though my relationship with my father, and we did come together later in life, was tumultuous and a lot of anger around it, we were able to heal that relationship before he passed away kind of untimely. So I'm grateful for the work that I have done, 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. I know that the work I'm doing right now is for my great-grandchildren, for sure. Absolutely.
Yes, so important to think that way. Okay, Elizabeth, it's hard to go last on this question. I know you have something to add, though. Tell us.
Sure. It's interesting. I happen to be working with my brother on a project for my mother's side of the family. We have information on 9 generations. We have like letters and lots of records and stuff. And the interesting thing is that there's 2 things that really play make up. You can see right through the lineage. One is depression and violence, and the other is the love of the land. And I was in meditation studying Pierre, who came over from France in the 1800s, early, like around 1800. And I was trying to figure out, I had this hunch that I knew he came over and started a business and brought his family. But I was like, what? I mean, and I know he came over in the French Revolution, so there was that bit. But I sat in a meditation some weeks ago, and this kind of knowing dropped in. I actually saw him standing on the railing of the ship, looking at France. He's on his way to America. His 2 sons and wife are behind him looking at him, tears streaming down his face. And I mean, I can't make this stuff up. This just came in. It was interesting. And he was longing for the land. You could see that. And then the other thing that happened in that, which was amazing, that my family does not emote. That's like, we all repress that's part of my healing journey, is to like not do that, right? Release that. One of his sons, EI, said in this vision that I had, I heard him say to his mom, real quietly, because she was making them get away so that her husband could have a moment of peace, with this vision. He said, whatever I do in America, I'm going to make sure it's worth it for what my dad's going through right now. And so, I mean, and the hairs are standing up on my arm now, and they did then. So, and the thing is that whole thing landed as truth. And when I shared it with my brother, it landed with truth for him too. And, we're not actually in the same work. We're working on the same project, but we come at different angles. But we felt it. So just like Melissa said, it's in the blood. It's just in the blood. And our job really is to tell both sides of the story, because it's a multicolor, multifaceted, this good and bad and everything in between. And also to be the transitional character to break the cycle of depression and violence in the lineage.
Okay, well, this is so absolutely perfect for the next thing that I want to talk about. So thank you, Elizabeth, for going there. Oh my gosh, that statement that he made, how powerful. And when you think about this, another thing I feel so grateful for all the time is playing, with people who take responsibility for stuff like that, who actually think about it, have the awareness, but then take responsibility for it. And to be able to say something like that is so huge. Krista, I'm going to start this next question with you. And so the ancestors within the whole series covers so many different aspects of ancestral healing. But the biggest thing for me was understanding that there's healing to be done, even though these people in my life have passed. And it was like this question came up. Well, what can I really do about all that? And why does it matter? Well, we all know it really matters. Tell me why, in your opinion. Help the listeners.
Right. I mean, essentially, the answer to that question is why we're all here, right? It's so
Yep.
important, to heal ourselves, and just how that connection, it's like giving, see it, have this vision of the more healing we do for ourselves, it's like setting all of our past ancestors free from the burdens, from the chains that they carried while they were walking this earth. And now that they no longer can, we have the power to do so. And our connections, our bonds are unbreakable. And the more healing we do for ourselves, the more it's offering to them. And then I love taking it into the future too, right? And especially our children, our great-grandchildren, the people that are around us. I found it being so profound for my daughter to watch me go through this healing process and walking the spiritual path that actually led me away from chasing the American dream and thinking I had to go and prove myself and become some hotshot to find happiness. And it steered me way off course onto my own, unbeaten path that led me to become a yoga teacher and a Reiki healer and a life coach. And now, I mean, my world revolves around helping people heal themselves for this very reason, because doing it for ourselves not only gives us this freedom in our own lives to break our own chains from our past and the pain that we drag around, and to set us free to follow our hearts and to love ourselves enough to do so, but that ripple effect. I'm constantly telling my clients, the more you are selfish and do this healing work for yourself, the more it ripples out and will positively affect. It's like sending out ripples of love and raising our vibration. The more we can help raise the vibrations of those around us. And it goes beyond what we can see, right? I love, someone else had made the comment too about wanting, in this world, so many people think that they need to see things to believe it. And I'm always teaching, no, we've got to believe it first to see it. And believing, that the healing we do is rippling out and impacting and healing our past ancestors and rippling forward. I love how Melissa said 7 generations back and 7 generations forward. We know the work we're doing now is going to ripple so far into the future, into days that we'll never see on this earth. And it all starts with us.
Oh, I love it. All right. This is such, sometimes these ideas are so big, right? And you are all amazing. We need all of the ways to talk about this, because there are a lot of people in the world. They need to hear it the way that they can hear it to understand that piece. Melissa, if you were going to try to keep the answer simple, what would yours be? Why is this idea of ancestral healing so important when you look back to people who have already passed away, right? And think of the beginner who doesn't really know about the topic so much. What would you add?
Oh my gosh, I'm reeling with that question, and I'll try to make it very simple. It all comes, it's going to sound so oversimplified. It all comes back to love. It all comes back to love and forgiveness. And I had to do so much forgiveness of my mother and my father, but really the forgiveness is forgiving myself for holding them hostage. So loving yourself, forgiving yourself, and really being gentle on yourself along the way. Does that answer that, Laura? I don't know if that's...
Yes. I mean, I think it is simple. And sometimes, you know, we make it mean other things and it gets way more complicated, but this is such a big topic. So I do love your answer because it helps people understand what it's really about loving people. It's really about love and forgiveness. So if you can really just start there, you know. Elizabeth, how about you? What do you want to add to this?
I love this discussion. We see the world the way we are, and we're imprinted with the, you know, the things that our ancestors went through, trial and tribulation, things that succeeded, things that didn't, unresolved things. We come in with the gifts and the burdens of our ancestors. So it's kind of like when I do the work to clear my own lenses, because I come in kind of with clouded lenses because of all the stuff the ancestors, you know, imprinted. When I clear my own lens, and we don't limit it in ancestor clearing, we don't limit it to 7 one way and 7 the other. That science could measure 14 generations. From the quantum perspective, we clear it all, right? It's just past, present, and future. When we work in the present moment, we have access to all space and time, all generations, right? So that's why I do the work. I clear myself and it clears everybody. It doesn't just clear me, right?
Yeah, that's a big deal too, thinking about that. And again, thanks to you all, but also thanks to you who are listening, who have also taken that on, who understand the subject and said, yeah, I'll do my own work. I will do that work, right? Because I know how important it is going to be for my children and their children, and how important it is for those who came before me. Jody, what do you want to add to this?
I guess simply I would say that yes, it starts with you. We often, many of us are called to do this work or to do it for ourselves, and that what we do has that ripple effect forwards, backwards, sideways, future generations, generations past, and it frees us. It in ways that we don't understand, and in relationship to other people. And my personal belief is that, you know, we sort of travel in these same circles in different lives. And, you know, when we clear our personal lineage, it also affects our partners in life and our friends in life. And often bringing that to them, to explore and to maybe take on for themselves. Many of us are the way showers. Many of us want to help others. But ultimately, when we help ourselves, we're helping others.
Definitely. I've heard that several times from, I think, all of you today. I know, I know the listeners have heard that. And what I want them to know is how powerful that's one simple thing is. Okay, you all, speed dating version of the answer to this next question. I'm going to go first so you can see how I want you to answer it. We all have multiple tools in our toolkit. That's one of the reasons these books are such gifts, is because the reader is going to get all kinds of different tools. Not one tool works for everybody, and not one tool works for everyone every time. So having a toolkit is really, really cool. So when I want to connect, really connect into powerful energy of the moment, I have so many things that I do, but I want you guys just to name one or two. I would say journaling, writing, journaling, duh, right? And walking in the woods. Melissa, name one or two that you like to do for you to connect.
Creating an homage to your ancestors through a wall of photographs.
Love it. Elizabeth, how about you?
The breath.
Yes, breath work. Powerful. Jody, how about you?
I have coffee with my ancestors.
Oh, I love that. Excellent. Krista, What's your answer?
I definitely agree with journaling, but also journaling in nature. I connect with ancestors. Oh man, all of the universe. The most clearest, the deepest connection in nature. Surround me in the trees.
Yes. And listeners, you're about to have so many more powerful practical tools in the book coming out. Authors, thank you so much for what you do in the world and for being here today to share it with everyone. Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, you guys, remember you can join us for our live stream book launch party for the Ancestors Within, Celebrate and Honor your Sacred Origins. Oh my gosh, I always have to make sure and get those titles right. Celebrate and Honor Your Sacred Origins. Our live stream party is coming up on September 16th. We're going to have that at noon Eastern on the Brave Healer Productions Facebook page. And you're hooked up down below with that link. Excuse me. And I know something you heard today made you curious, right? Drop down in the show notes because all of our authors are hooked up there with their websites and they are very generously there for you to take next steps, to ask a question, to get support about the topic, right? Go explore, take a click and find out the awesomeness that they are up to. If you happen to be listening after that September 16th date, well, that means the book is ready. So grab your copy on Amazon. And lastly, today, everyone, remember, your words change the world when you're brave enough to share them. So it's time to be brave. See you next time, everyone. Bye, ladies.